We are in the last few weeks of the Supreme Court's current term, and the justices still have 24 decisions to hand down. Among the most high profile, whether the 2020 census will contain a controversial citizenship question, and the fate of a nearly 100-year-old peace cross built to honor World War I fighters. It stands in Maryland. To help us break this all down is Chief Counsel and Policy Director of the Judicial Crisis Network, Carrie Severino, and President of the Constitutional Accountability Center, Elizabeth Wydra. Ladies, wonderful to have you with us. So let's break down quickly for our viewers the nuts and bolts of this case here. At issue, we're going to look at census and the citizenship question first. At issue is whether this question should be added to the 2020 form. The Trump administration says it would help enforce the Voting Rights Act and lead to a more realistic accounting of the U.S. population writ large. But critics, civil rights groups, say it would lead to undercounting minority populations, particularly blacks and Latinos. Carrie, who's on the right side of the coin here?
Well, this is a question that should really be unremarkable. The citizenship question has been on some form of the U.S. Census for the vast majority of its history. This would just be, and it's already in questions that
but not since 1950, right?
Not since 1950 when they introduced on the short form, but they still used it in the long form regularly, and it's something that the Census Bureau continues to ask in their regular surveys they do. It is very foundational that a country ought to know how many citizens it has. It's something the United Nations recommends its member nations do. This is something that should be totally unremarkable. The fact it's even being challenged shows a disturbing trend toward attempts to push back on the very concept of citizenship, and it's frightening to think there could be several justices in the court who would suggest that that's not even an appropriate question. Again, that the country had asked for hundreds of years that they shouldn't be allowed to ask that question.
You disagree.
So I absolutely
lay
disagree.
out your perspective for us.
Yeah, so first of all, the census is supposed to count everybody. Our Constitution ensures that everyone, whether you're a citizen or not, whether you can vote, whether you can't, is counted. They're counted
Meaning
for purposes.
It wants to get a handle on the U.S. population.
Yes, because
large.
The census might sound boring, but it's not. It's important for political representation, and the Supreme Court and the Constitution ensure that everyone counts for political representation, whether they can vote or not, citizen or not. That's in the Constitution, and it's clear. And also the census ensures that federal millions and millions, $800 million, is distributed to communities where they need it. And so if you are undercounted, if vulnerable communities are undercounted, and the research shows that they would be undercounted with this edition of the question, then that's a big deal. And the information, as Carrie says, is already available through other forms. And so it's really just a cover-up reason to say it's for the Voting Rights Act.
Cover-up, right? Because a lot of
the idea, so he was hardly trying to cover.
Jefferson likes some things that weren't very good.
A lot of conservatives will tell you this is about dollars, and this is about federal funding for states. This is about House seats for Democrats. Carrie, tell us about the political implications of this decision, one way or the other.
Well, we need to know where the American citizens are located. That's not the only question being asked on there.
Yeah.
The citizenship surveys ask a whole lot of questions, and if you look at the people who are declining, the questions that are declined to answer, they decline to answer that question at similar rates as declining to answer whether you're married or not. So there's a lot of speculation that goes to. I disagree that it's clear that people are going to be not answering the survey. I think right now we're not asking the entire country the question on citizenship. So we are getting this from spot check surveys the Census Bureau is doing, but we don't have those numbers for the countries allowed at large. It's common sense to say we need to know those answers. The 14th Amendment talks about the privileges and immunities of citizenship. It's right there in the Constitution. Citizens are the ones who are voting, so it makes sense to know those numbers.
But that's not the operative constitutional clause. It's about political representation, which instead, the 14th Amendment is very clear that everyone is counted when it comes to drawing the lines for political representation.
They would still be
counting. And the Supreme Court just said that.
Everyone. Again, I think it's total speculation saying people are going to refuse to answer the question simply because.
I mean, research shows it. It's not speculation.
We disagree on the research.
Check out the Urban Institute.
Well, and to be fair, the focus shifted this year to executive privilege when, the president invoked. There's now a fight over whether this is even in the administration's prerogative to make this decision, whether Secretary of the Treasury Wilbur Ross rightfully, took this decision upon himself. So that's still got to get hashed out in the interim as well.
And if you look at the constitutional grant and the congressional grant from its grant, it is incredibly broad. It's virtually unlimited, saying they just need to count the people, and Congress gets the authority to do that.
But if the reason is a good one, why not? Why are you hiding the documents?
We didn't even get to the Peace Cross, which I wanted to talk to you guys about because this was such a lively and heated debate. Thank you so much. We'll bring you back to talk about the Peace Cross in the next few weeks. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.